So, you're thinking about buying some raw land. Finding that perfect spot for your future home, a little weekend cabin, or maybe just a smart investment. It's an exciting idea. But what happens when that dream, well, turns into a total nightmare? It almost always comes down to one crucial step that people skip way too often. And this quote just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? There's this massive gap between the dream of owning a piece of the earth and all the hidden risks that can come with it. And the single biggest trap you can fall into, just assuming you know exactly what you're buying.
Which brings us right here, the dream versus the reality. Because let me tell you, without a proper professional survey, that beautiful, problem-free piece of land you're looking at might not be what you actually get on paper.
And that is really the bottom line here. You are flying completely blind. I mean, think about it. You could be spending tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars on an investment without even checking the most basic details. Trusting some old fence line or just taking the seller's word for it, that's not due diligence, you guys. That is a huge gamble. So, let's get into the nitty-gritty. What are we actually talking about here? What could really go wrong if you decide to skip this step? Turns out, a whole lot. Well, first off, the boundaries could just be flat out wrong. That old fence you thought marked your property line, yeah, it could be off by 20 feet. Suddenly, your neighbor's shed is on your land, and guess what? That problem is now yours to deal with. Then you got hidden easements, which are basically legal rights for other people to just cross your property. And maybe the most common shocker, the land is just smaller than they told you it was. Any one of these things can drag you into a legal mess and tank the value of your investment. Okay, and this visual says it all, right? On the left, you see the dream, a simple, clean rectangle of land. But on the right, that's the reality a survey can uncover. You got a neighbor's driveway cutting right across the corner and a utility easement smack in the middle of where you wanted to build. These are things you would never spot just by walking the property. All right, enough with the scary stuff. I know, it sounds like a minefield. But the good news is, there's a very clear, very straightforward solution to all this uncertainty. Let's talk about the survey itself. I absolutely love this quote because it frames it so perfectly. A survey is not just another cost, it's an investment in your own peace of mind. It is literally the one thing that turns what you think you know into what you actually know for a fact. So, how does it protect you exactly? Well, a survey gives you concrete proof of the exact boundaries in the acreage so you know you're getting what you paid for. It uncovers any encroachments before they blow up into a legal battle. And, this is a big one, it's often required if you're getting a loan or title insurance, which are the very things that legally protect your ownership. Now, you might be thinking, okay, I'm sold. I need a survey. But not all surveys are created equal. So the next logical question is, which type is the right one for you? Let's break down the most common options. For most folks buying a piece of raw land, this is your starting point. It's called a boundary survey, and it does exactly what it sounds like. It finds and marks your official property lines and corners. This is really the essential first step to make sure the land you see is the land you'll actually own. But what if your deal is a little more complicated? What if a bank is involved, or you're looking at a pretty high-value commercial property? Well, that's when you might need to level up. And that level up is the ALTA/NSPS survey. Just think of this as the gold standard. It meets this really strict set of national requirements and includes a ton more detail. We're talking everything from utilities and easements to zoning restrictions. It might be overkill for a simple cash deal, but if you're getting financing, this is what gives lenders and title companies total certainty. All right, let's talk about the big question on everyone's mind, the cost. How much is this actually going to set you back? Let's look at some real-world numbers for 2026 so you can budget for this. So this chart gives you a really quick snapshot. You can see that a standard boundary survey is often the most affordable way to go. The more detailed surveys, like the ALTA or a topographic survey, are naturally going to cost a bit more. Now, what's really useful here is seeing how that cost scales with the size of the property. For a small lot, say under an acre, you might pay around $1,000. For something in the 1 to 10 acre range, the price bracket widens. And yeah, for those big 40-acre plus parcels, the cost can go up pretty significantly, especially if the land is tricky to navigate. So, what's the key takeaway from most buyers? You should probably budget somewhere in this ballpark, between about $800 and $5,500. For most typical land purchases, that's a pretty realistic starting point to have in your head. And just remember, a few things can definitely push that price higher. If the land is covered in thick woods, or has steep hills, or it's just really remote,
All of that means more time and work for the surveyor. Same goes if the property's legal history is a mess. The best advice I can give you? Always get 2 or 3 quotes from licensed local surveyors.
When it all comes down to it, this is the best way to think about it. You would never buy a car without checking the title and its history, right? So why on earth would you make an even bigger investment in land without doing the exact same thing? A survey is your proof of ownership. It's your protection. It's your peace of mind.
So, before you sign on that dotted line, just ask yourself this one question. A land survey is really the only way you're going to know for sure. Thanks for tuning in.